Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mr. Saucedo's YouTube videos. Today, we're going to be talking about how cells work together to maintain homeostasis. So, just a reminder, we talked about homeostasis all the way back in like Unit 1, but homeostasis is the process of maintaining constant internal conditions. And so, your environment is constantly changing, and your cells have to respond to those changes. And those changes can be anything. We are very complicated creatures. So, it can be temperature. It isn't always the same temperature every second of every day. And so your body has to change and respond in response to that. The pressure isn't always the same. If you're going up a mountain, the pressure is going to be different. Your body has to react to that change. The amount of food, in your body and the amount of food that you have right now in your digestive system isn't constant, has to react. How much water you have, how much oxygen, what pollutants you are exposed to, how stressed out you are. All of those things are going to affect your homeostasis. And so, something that we already talked about in Unit 1, I think, is why we sweat. But I want to just kind of like give you the briefest of brief explanations again of kind of what's going on with that. So, we have hot temperatures, right? So if our body temperature starts to go up because it is way too hot outside, and it doesn't even have to cause an increase in our body temperature, it can literally just be hot externally. Your body is going to say, okay, great. What am I going to need to do? So if that happens, blood flow to your skin is going to increase. So that means that your veins and arteries are going to be moving closer to the surface of your skin. That is going to give you normally a redder appearance if you have like almost no melanin, right? And so that is going to be a visible thing that you can see. You can be like, whoa, you look like you're super red. Are you okay? And as a result of that, right, we're going to have some cooling automatically happening because we're moving away our veins and arteries, which are carrying warm blood, are going to be moving further and further away from our organs, and they're going to be moving closer to the surface of the skin. And so, as a result of that, little muscles are going to expand your pores. Sweat glands are going to release water in the form of sweat. And as that sweat evaporates, that is going to cool off your veins and your blood as a result of that. It's going to cool us off because it's an endothermic process where it is absorbing, basically. So the sweat is absorbing energy and then it is evaporating. And evaporation is going to cool us off because the energy is leaving us and it is going into the water itself. So now let's talk about some levels of organization. So we have cells. We've been talking about them this entire unit. What is above a cell? Tissues. Tissues are groups of similar cells that are acting together in order to perform a common function. So, for example, we have like muscle tissue, we have nervous tissue. And so here you go. That's muscle tissue under a microscope. That's nervous tissue under a microscope. What's a step above tissue? We have organs. Organs are groups of two or more tissues that work together to perform specific functions. So obviously we have heart, we have our lungs, we have kidneys, etc. Here is a good old fresh kidney, nice and shiny. Um, and again, they're manufactured out of multiple forms of tissue. It's above an organ. An organ system is a group of organs classified as a unit because they perform a common set of functions. We have a ton of different types of organ systems, right? You have your muscular system, skeletal system, nervous system, endocrine system, circulatory system, and that's only 5 of them, and there are way more than 5. So, how exactly do organ systems and organs work together? Well, we are very complicated organisms and we use feedback systems in order to maintain homeostasis. So there are 3 things that you need in order for a feedback system to work. The first are receptors, and those are basically sensors that gather information about your conditions inside or outside of your body. So we have like our eyes are a form of a receptor. Okay, they're photoreceptors. They contain photoreceptors. Hearing is another type. Those are mechanoreceptors. We have tons of different things, but things that also are not our senses that are actually picking up signals all the time. And so those signals are going to have to go somewhere. And so that would be a control center. And so that could be the brain, which is probably our primary control center, everybody knows. It could be your spinal cord. That would be more like a reflex because we don't really control that. Or endocrine glands could be a control center. Okay, it just depends on what we're looking at. The effector, though, is the last part, and that is an organ or tissue that's connected to the control center in some way, shape, or form that is going to have to now change its activity level in response to the message that was received. And so that's kind of our system. And there are tons of different feedback systems out there. And so here's a really good one. And so you can see in this picture that maybe our calcium levels are a little bit off. So what happens if our calcium levels are a little bit off? Okay. Well, our bones have calcium. And so we could just take some calcium from our bones. I mean, that's not necessarily probably the best way of doing it, but we could. And so the parathyroid has the ability to basically take some of the calcium from our bones in order to make our blood calcium levels go up. And that is a feedback loop. Also, we could instead stimulate your kidneys to hold on to more calcium instead of allowing it to be released into, just like your urine or something. And so that's another possibility. We could, actively increase the amount of calcium that your intestines is going to be absorbing because there's a set amount of calcium it's going to be absorbing. And that's, your usual amount of calcium that you need in your day. But if you're getting low calcium, your intestines need to know, oh, I need to hold on to some more extra calcium. And so this is an example of a crazy feedback system. And your body is doing this all the time because your calcium levels are not the same throughout the day. And so it's always making these decisions. If you ever have low calcium, it's going to try to do one or more of these until it's reached homeostasis. And so here's a good example of a feedback system. So sensors, they're going to be in green in our skin, in our tissues. We have sensors that monitor temperature. The control center that is in charge of, getting all that information and interpreting it is the hypothalamus in our brain. Our normal body temperature is about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. What if it's too cold, though? What is it going to do? Well, the hypothalamus is going to send an electrical signal to these effectors. It's going to cause your muscles to contract. That causes you to shiver. So now you're producing a little bit more heat. Your blood vessels are going to go basically deeper into your body in order to warm up your organs so your organs don't start to fail. And then it will send that information back to the sensors. And then your sensors will say, oh, hey, great, we warmed up. And then the control center will say, good, we can stop it at this point. What if it's too hot? Well, blood vessels are going to dilate. So you're going to allow more blood to move through the body. You're going to have sweat glands secrete fluid. Your blood vessels are going to move closer to the surface of your body in order to cool off. And then again, what happens? Sends that information. Hopefully the sensors pick up that there's been a change in our body temperature as a result of this. And then the hypothalamus says, great, you can stop. This is happening every second of every day. And unless we're exactly at 98.6 degrees outside, this is always going to be occurring. All right, so hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions, let me know.